Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. This is going to be a really exciting, basically podcast journey. We got slides for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the identity of Mystery Babylon. Okay, this is probably one of my favorite subjects. And bro, Leroy, Mystery Babylon is something that I think a lot of people get wrong for many different reasons, man. But this video, we're going to seriously clarify who Mystery Babylon is. Because
it's gonna be crystal clear after this video.
It's gonna be crystal clear,
no doubt.
100%. And so what we're really going to be doing is we're going to be disseminating. We got slides, so I'll show you guys kind of what we're doing right here. We're going to jump into it, but we're going to be giving you guys a step-by-step guide as to how to understand who Mystery Babylon is. Very, very important. All right, so let's do a couple shout-outs before we get started. Sydney said, hey, what's up, Sydney? What's up?
What's up, Sydney?
Guinevere says, hey. Amber Torres says, blessings. And Sydney says, so glad you guys are back. It is good to be back. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it is. It is, man. Let's get right back on it.
So let's go ahead and get into this. We're going to be talking about Mystery Babylon. So who do people really think Mystery Babylon is? Well, we have some of the most popular options, and I'm not saying these are going to be like the best options, but these are the most popular options that people give. They say Rome, which is typically Vatican City. That's probably the number one most popular option is Rome. We have Mecca, New York, and Wall Street. So Leroy, can you go ahead and disseminate this real quick? I need to get my headphones back up and running.
All right, so why do people say Rome first and foremost, right? Everyone's heard of the 7 hills of Rome. And people kind of use that as a means to say that the woman in Revelation 17 who's sitting on 7 mountains, this is essentially the Vatican City. But it has no hermeneutical, biblical significance. Like the Bible never uses, mountains as a, geography to describe where a city is located. Nah, so it's not Rome. And we're going to go down to Mecca as well, because Mecca is one that we actually did kind of, it was a viewpoint that we actually did hold to, isn't it, Jericho? Because we thought it was Mecca before. I'm guilty. My hands up. Thought it was Mecca, but it's not Mecca either, right? So,
well, Mecca is actually becoming more popular. Today, a lot of people are saying Mecca is going to be the great, Mystery Babylon, the mother of all abominations, which we held to, like you're saying. However, once we let the Bible speak for itself, which we're going to show you in these slides, things were totally different. So you can attest to that, Leroy. I know you can.
Oh, definitely. Especially since they're building that new city, Neom. That kind of drove it even further. I was like, yo, this must be that city. But it's not.
Right. And so most likely you guys thought it was one of these options. So what if we told you that it's actually none of those options? Okay, the woman riding the beast is not Mecca. It's not Rome. It's not Wall Street. It is something very specific that is coming and is probably already in fruition as we speak. Okay. And so let's get into this because this is really important. Okay. Revelation 17 is where we find the first kind of indicator of, well, actually not the first, because you could say Revelation 11, but Revelation 17 is the most comprehensive understanding of the woman. So it says right here, on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. Now, I want everybody to notice here how it doesn't say the name written on her forehead is Mystery Babylon. It's not Mystery Babylon. What's written on her forehead is Babylon the Great. And that is the mystery. So literally, the Bible never says that anything really is a mystery. There's only this. And I'm probably in Daniel, we're talking about a couple other items. However, this woman is specifically described as a mystery. Okay. So then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, this is John who's having the vision. Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk. Okay, what is she composed of, Leroy?
She has on scarlet, right? Oh, sorry. Yeah, she's composed of scarlet, purple, and she has a golden cup. She's adorned with gold as well all these are elements that we're going to go into during the slides. It's going to make so much sense at the end of the video. Yeah.
Right. So she, she's like you said, she's seated on a scarlet beast. We put a picture right here for you for what it could look like. You see what I'm saying? And this is the vision that he saw. She's arrayed in purple, scarlet, and precious jewels. We're going to go into that. And she has a golden cup in her hand filled with the blood of the saints. John is amazed at the mystery of this woman. And as the angel gives more details, it actually says this. When I saw her, the woman, this is John, I marveled greatly. But the angel said to me, why do you even marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what we see here is there's a delineation of 2 figures. There's the woman, and then there's the beast that she rides. This beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, we can't go directly into the beast. If you guys want to go do a little more research after this, go to my playlist and go to the prophecies of Daniel, because that's really gonna link the beasts for what they are. We're gonna talk about it a little bit here, but we're primarily focused on the woman who is riding the beast. Okay, so right here, here's the indication. It says the beast that you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the dwellers on earth whose names have not been found written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. What an interesting mystery this beast is presenting before us, man. What are your thoughts?
No, my thoughts are exactly that. Like, this is something that God is mentioning over and over again. There's this kind of theme through Revelation where it speaks about what was and what is present and what is to come. So that's what John was actually told to write, right? What was in the past, present, and future. But we see when it comes to the beast, God is mentioning that this beast once was and is not and shall arise. We see that Jesus in Revelation 1, verse 7, I believe, it says Jesus was and is to come.
Yep, that's a big one.
Yeah, the difference is this guy was and is not. Something happened to him. He's wounded. He's in the bottomless pit, and he will be again. So
right.
Yeah.
No, that's a perfect explanation. So when we go to what is this beast? Well, actually, what we're going to see is that each of the heads is going to represent a kingdom. Now, we're not just going to say that. We're going to prove it to you. Everything we're saying, we're going to prove. Trust me, because a lot of people have a lot of different views. But essentially, when it says that the beast that you saw was, is not, and is to come, he's talking about a sequence of 7 historical kingdoms. Okay, so in the past, so the vision was given to John during the Roman Empire, right? So the Roman Empire had control over, Jerusalem at the time. It was being ruled under Pontius Pilate, which was one of the prefects. That's when the vision was given to John. So from his perspective, the beast that he saw was, meaning it is one of the 5 historical kingdoms that held control over Jerusalem. You have Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, and Greece. Is not, so it is not during the time of Rome, but it is to come. It's going to be the 7th, or perhaps it's going to be one of the future kingdoms that arises. Okay, very, very important. If this is not clicking with you yet, make sure to pause the video and make sure you fully understand this, because if you don't fully understand this, we're going to have issues moving forward. Everything is built on a foundation 1, 2, 3. Okay, definitely. So this is what we need to understand is, so why do the heads represent kingdoms? Why do we say that? Because we just kind of made the claim. Well, when you go into Micah chapter 4, we essentially see this. It shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established as the highest of the mountains. It shall be lifted up above the hills, and people shall flow to it, and many nations shall come. This is Daniel chapter 2 talking about a very similar event. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom. There it is. It's literally spelled out for us in Daniel chapter 2. These mountains that are written throughout prophecy also represent kingdoms.
Right.
Okay, they represent kingdoms. Even the kingdom of God is represented as a mountain, right,
Mountain.
Leroy?
No, exactly. Yeah, Daniel 2, it's, it becomes a huge mountain and it engulfs the whole world. Like, no one's going to say this is a literal mountain. We all understand it's a kingdom. So why can't it be, why can't the woman be sitting on literal kingdoms as well?
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah,
yeah.
it's
So I mean,
your
that's totally yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And sorry to interrupt, but this is really where we gotta tie this mystery in because it's
mm,
such a crazy mystery. And I labeled this the mountain mystery because I've debated people who
mountain.
think that these mountains are like literal hills, talking
Yeah.
about the hills of Rome. Well, that's actually not what the Bible says because it connects these mountains to kingdoms. So when it says right here, this calls for a mind with wisdom. What is the wisdom that this calls from, guys? It's the wisdom from previous prophetic scriptures. This
Hmm.
calls for a mind with wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also seven kings, five of whom have fallen, one is, and the other has not yet come. So if we go back, that's exactly what we saw
Hmm.
previously looking at this is each of these heads of the beast represents a kingdom and a king, right? Egypt was ruled under the Pharaoh, Assyria
Right.
was Sennacherib, Babylon was Nebuchadnezzar, Persia was Cyrus, and Greece was Alexander.
Hmm.
So these kingdoms are basically twofold. They represent a kingdom and a king.
Right. Let
So
me add something there real quick before you proceed, because this is
okay,
important
yeah,
as
go ahead.
well. When it mentions that they are seven kings, we know that throughout these kingdoms, multiple kings would have ruled from these kingdoms. Even Babylon, after Nebuchadnezzar fell, died, it was his grandson who ruled, isn't it, in his place. So why does it mention seven specific kings? Because these kings aren't just human kings; they are the principalities that rule over these kingdoms.
Yes,
So when you go to Daniel 10, it mentions the prince of Persia, then the prince of Greece. So we know that there's principalities over these other kingdoms as well, Egypt and Assyria and Babylon also as well. So we have to
absolutely.
understand that those seven kings are literally the principalities that have ruled over these
Yeah.
kingdoms. Mm,
So there's a whole trifecta going on with this, with the mystery of the seven heads. So
mm,
as we go back, this calls for a mind with wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains on which the woman is seated. So we haven't even discussed who the woman is yet. We've just been discussing the beast, who she is riding, which is seven historical kingdoms, right? And
right.
so this is where it gets really important. Um, the woman is riding this beast. She was riding every historical kingdom.
Mm,
Guys, this is a really important point. Is this isn't Rome because Rome was just one of the capitals of one of the kingdoms. The woman who is writing the beast, she has been writing all of the kingdoms from prehistory, right? When we go back, she was there in Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece. She was there with Rome, and then she will be there in the future when this kingdom rises again. So this
mm,
is a much greater mystery than most people try to make it seem. Okay. So let's continue. We're going to continue down this. This is going to be really exciting. Let's get it. The angel said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. And the woman that you saw is the great
great. Good.
city that
Mm,
has dominion over the kings of the earth. Guys, it's so crazy how the Bible literally tells us what it is. The woman is a city. Okay, it's called the Great City that sat on top of all of the historic and future kingdoms of the beast. This is really important to understand, right?
mm,
So what we have right here is a list of the attributes of this prostitute of the city, right? She's called a harlot. She rides all seven kingdoms of the beast. She is sat on multitudes of nations. She has a golden cup in her hand, right? Symbolically full of the blood of the martyrs. And she's arrayed in gold, purple, scarlet. Yo, the gold, purple, and scarlet, Leroy, that's probably going to be my favorite part because that
yeah,
it's so clear.
so clear.
It's
People would
so
love it.
clear, man.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, we have to understand that this is a city. So can Rome, Vatican City, Mecca, New York, Wall Street, or any city outside this list, besides one, have been there throughout all of the historical kingdoms? No, absolutely not. This is a
Mm,
much deeper mystery to behold. Even Proverbs 30 says right here, It's too mysterious to behold. This is the way of an adulterous woman. She eats and wipes her mouth and says, I have done no wickedness.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, let's go in. Basically, now that we've said that, we have to really ask the question,
Yeah,
well, if none of these cities that we previously thought, like Rome, fits the criteria of even the most fundamental parts of the city, what does? Okay, what does? Well, the Bible actually is going to tell us. Thank God for the Bible, right? Leroy,
exactly.
do you want to read this part?
Yeah, so it says, the Lord said to me in the days of King Josiah, have you seen what she did? The faithless one, Israel, how she went up on every high hill and under every green tree, and
Mm.
there played the whore. And I thought, after she has done all this, she will return to me, but she did not return. Her treacherous sister, Judah, saw it.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's starting to become clear now, huh? It's
yep, it's
starting to become
becoming
clear
clear.
now.
Mm,
Israel throughout the Bible is running after these kingdoms under specific kings to essentially be protected. And God says, "No, I'm going to be your king. You need to be faithful to me." And Israel is constantly unfaithful throughout the history of its existence, including
exactly.
even now.
And
So again, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, make known to Jerusalem her abominations, and say, Thus says the Lord God to Jerusalem. But you trusted in your beauty and played the whore. Because of your renown and lavished your whorings on any passerby, your beauty became his. Talking about these other kingdoms.
mm,
You took some of your garment and made for yourself colorful shrines, and on them played the whore. The like has never been, nor ever shall be.
right.
Okay. Now, here is where we start to get into the gold, the silver, and the purple, right? Because in Exodus chapter 28, 5 through 6, this is actually the commands given to the high priests. So the high priests within Israel were actually commanded to make their ephods and their clothing off of specific materials and specific colors. What
Yeah.
are those colors, you might ask? Well, it says right here, Exodus 28, 5 through 6. And they Israel shall take gold and blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen. They shall make the ephod of gold, of blue, and of purple or scarlet, in fine twisted linen with cunning work. Okay.
Mm,
Now, what we have here is a list of what these colors represent,
represent,
and
yeah.
we have every color that Mystery Babylon the Great has, which is scarlet, purple, and gold, except for blue. Okay, blue is going to be kind of a mystery here. So if you want to go ahead and explain that.
So yeah, so we have the references here. So that's numbers 15, 38 to 39. And what the blue, each of the colors actually represents something. What the blue does represent, as we see here in the symbolism, it represents obedience, heaven, and a divine law, right? So we know that she's without these colors, blue and the white at the bottom as well. The white is really significant because the white means purity. So this woman is not pure, right? Nor does she have obedience to her husband, right? Who is God himself. So the colors
Yeah.
that she does have currently is scarlet, purple, and gold,
Yep.
which she's adorned with. She has those, but she doesn't have the blue nor the white. So that's the reason why.
Right. And so we actually have a picture here. When we put the two side by side, the high priests and
Mm,
Mystery Babylon, you're going to see a lot of similarities. You're going to
mm,
see how they're both adorned with precious jewels, right? And they also have inlaid. So if you look at the one on the right with the high priest, if you look at his tassel or like the waistband with kind of the white thing coming down, that has scarlet, purple, interwoven, and gold interwoven into it. They
exactly.
have gold tassels interwoven into their priest. The only thing that is different is the blue, which the blue was supposed to symbolize their faithfulness to the God of Israel. So
Mm,
basically, what God is doing is He's saying, "Look, this woman is faithless. She's detestable. She has a
mm,
golden cup in her hand full of abominations, and she's going to be dressed up like she is royalty, like a queen in beauty,
mm,
and she's going to partner with the Antichrist and the beast system that's coming up." Okay, we can see the similarities right there. Now, when John went into the wilderness to see her, right, this is some of the composition that she was, imposed with, and we've already showed you guys this. Um, we have to ask ourselves now, what does the cup represent? Because the cup plays a major role into all of this as well with the blood of the martyrs. Leroy, I know you put this up here. If you want to go ahead and explain this part.
Okay, so what does the cup represent? Now, guys, we need to really zoom in on here because this is very descriptive about who this woman is. So it says, "The word of the Lord came to me, son of man. There were two women, daughters of the same mother." So God is essentially describing the northern kingdom and southern kingdom, because after Solomon, the kingdom was split in two. The northern kingdom comprising of the 10 tribes, and then the southern kingdom with the two tribes, I think it's Benjamin and Judah. So you had Jerusalem and Samaria. God is essentially saying, or using this allegory, this imagery, representing two women as his, right?
Two women. Yep.
Yes, two women. Now, the older one was named Ohola, and her sister was Oholiba, and they were mine, and they gave birth to sons and daughters. Olaha is Samaria, and Oholiba is Jerusalem, right?
Yep.
So we have the descriptions there. Verse 5 says, Olaha, or Hohola, engaged in prostitution while she was still mine. She lusted after her lovers, the Assyrians. And therefore I delivered her into the hands of her lovers. So historically, the northern kingdom was actually taken over by Sennacherib.
Yep.
They came in, took Lachish, historically, is documented, and they were making their way down to Jerusalem, right? So that's essentially what happened. So Ezekiel 23 is kind of giving a snapshot of what was going on during the time of Sennacherib and Hezekiah. So yeah, moving on here, it says her sister Oholiba saw this. So this is talking about Jerusalem. And yet, in her lust and prostitution, she was more depraved than her sister. So, Jerusalem, after seeing what happened with Northern Kingdom, obviously Samaria going after the Assyrians and lusting after them, and the Lord gave them into the hands of the Assyrians. Jerusalem was even more depraved, meaning she done
Yep.
worse. She went
Mhm.
further than her sister, right? That's
Yep.
what God is describing. In verse 12, it says, she too lusted after the Assyrians, governors and commanders, warriors in full dress, mounted on horses, all handsome young men. I saw that she too defiled herself. Both of them went the same way. So both Northern Kingdom, Southern Kingdom, Samaria, Jerusalem went the same way after the Assyrians. Verse 14 says, but she carried her prostitution still further. She's doing worse. She saw men portrayed on a wall, figures of Chaldeans portrayed in red. Therefore, Uliba, Jerusalem, thus says the Lord, behold, I will stir up thy lovers against thee, from whom thy soul is alienated, and I'll bring them upon thee round about. This is what Jesus also says, that they will form an embankment around them in Matthew 24. It says, the children of Babylon and all the Chaldeans, Pakuk, Sil, and Haiku, and all the sons of the Assyrians with them, choice young men, governors and captains, all princes and renowned, riding on horses, and they all shall come upon thee from the north. Where, Jericho, where does the destruction come from? Always, right?
From the north.
Right, exactly, from
Every
the north.
time.
Exactly. You have these nations that are literally a coalition of nations from the north of Israel, and to the east as well. But they wouldn't pass through the Arabian, desert. They would pass through
Right.
kind of like where Turkey is. So it always appears that to Israel that they're coming from the north. That's where destruction is coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, yeah, that's really important to understand. That the thing is, when we go further into this mystery, because, Samaria and Israel, which is Jerusalem, are, it's basically symbolic for how they are going after these other kings. They're going after these other mountains, right? I mean, it's all symbolic language, or, language for a certain element of prostitution. From God's perspective, it looks like they are prostituting with other nations because they're
Exactly.
trusting other nations. They want to intermix with these other nations, and they want to worship their gods. And that's essentially what we're dealing with when we look at Mystery Babylon, how she is the mother of all of the abominations of the earth. She sits atop the beast. Who is like me? Nobody can come against me. I am with my lover, the Antichrist. And we're going to dig deeper into that, what that means. But it says right here, therefore, thus says the Lord God, behold, I will deliver thee into the hands of those whom thou hatest, whom thy soul is alienated, and they shall deal with thee in hatred. And thou shalt be naked and bare, and the shame of thy fornication shall be exposed. You walked in the way of your sister, and I will put her cup into thine hands. So
Right.
in the way that Samaria lusted after the Assyrians and wanted to be with the Assyrians instead of their God, God cuts them off, and then he says, look, Israel, you're even worse. I'm going to give you the cup that essentially was in the hands of your sister. You're going to hold this cup and you're going to drink from it, which is your ultimate destruction. Drink
Right.
thy sister's cup. This is verse 32. Deep and large and full to cause complete drunkenness. What is the woman drunk on in Revelation
Yeah,
17?
she's drunk
She's
with the.
drunk on the blood of
Yeah,
the saints.
that's
Okay,
right.
so this is what we're seeing here. Thou shalt be thoroughly weakened in the cup of destruction, the cup of thy sister Samaria. Drink of it, and I will take away her feast and her new moons. For I have spoken, says the Lord. Therefore, because you have forgotten me and cast me behind your back, therefore receive the reward of your ungodliness in thy fornication. Okay,
Ooh.
guys, God doesn't play around when it comes to that. He does
Mm,
not play around, right? Oops, I think I messed this up. Yeah, he
oh.
does not play around, Leroy.
He
It's
doesn't. I
crazy.
mean, when God decrees something, especially when the sins have reached its full measure, like judgment is going
Yeah.
to come regardless, because God is just. So, with this part, what does the cup represent? So, Jericho's just beautifully read that, right? So, the cup that the woman's holding is the cup of her sister Samaria. So, what does this mean? Okay, we're going to go into Ezekiel 23 again, and we're going to compare it with Revelation 17. So it says, therefore I said, do not commit adultery with these. And she has also gone a whoring after the manner of a harlot, right? So it's describing Jerusalem again as a harlot. Revelation 17. Then I saw one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters. So Revelation 17, it's the same thing, the harlot. Ezekiel 23, it said in verse 29, it says, and they shall deal with thee in hatred. Those nations that will come against her will deal with her in hatred. And it says, and
Yep.
thou shalt be made naked and bare. This is the destruction that's going to happen on Jerusalem. She's going to be made naked, and those that hate her are going to deal with her. In Revelation
Yeah.
17, what do we find there? The 10 horns, which are on the beast, which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot and make her desolate and
Mm.
naked, eat her flesh and burn her with fire. It's the
Isn't it
same.
crazy how when you just let the Bible speak, it totally comes up with like the answer for us? It's like unlocking the Bible with a key. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? Because when you understand the context, you're like, wow, this is exactly what happened to Israel in the past. This is
Mm,
exactly what's going to happen to her in the future, right? But it's
ex-
going to happen under the authority of the Antichrist.
right.
So the woman and the beast, what my brother just described, is the woman rides it until the beast eventually turns on her and destroys her and make her desolate. Now, remember, this is a city we're talking about here. So most likely it is Jerusalem who is going to be destroyed. The woman can really only be Jerusalem. This is really the point that we're making, guys. Is there's really no other way to make it any other city for these reasons. Jerusalem is the only city that sat on top of each of the historical kingdoms in the past. So she was there with Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, and Rome, and she will rise again with the beast for the final kingdom. If you believe that Mystery Babylon is Rome, is Mecca, or is any other combination of whatever it is you want to claim, you have to show how that specific city was there
Right.
with all of the historical kingdoms. That's
Mm.
what we would like to see.
You know,
Okay. Israel. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, brother.
I was going to add to that even more so. She committed whoredoms with these kingdoms. That's the thing. I don't think it
Yes.
was Rome. It's the whoredoms. That's what it's talking about. She's on top of these mountains committing
Yeah.
adultery against God. Mm. Doesn't fit anything
Absolutely.
else. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, Rome was the chief superpower, so it'd be committing adultery with itself, if that even makes any
Right.
sense. It
Exactly.
doesn't, and that's the point. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So historically, Israel has played the harlot with world superpowers. This is described as her fornicating with the false gods of the nations. She is meant to only trust in Yahweh, but instead trust in other kingdoms historically. She will trust one last time in the beast when he rises up, when the Antichrist makes a 7-year peace treaty. That is what this harlot's going to do. Okay. So the
Mm.
Antichrist is expected to rule from Jerusalem. And when she makes her treaty with him, it will be the global epicenter of Christian martyrdom ever. Okay. This can be described as when the woman is drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, right? We know the Antichrist, he's going to make this 7-year peace treaty. He's going to break it halfway through. We'll get into what that's going to, relate. But we ultimately know that it's from this city he's going to set up his kingdom. Okay. Now, after 3.5 years, the beast will break the covenant and begin invading Jerusalem. Are we seeing, guys? Are we seeing how this is so obvious? He's going to break that covenant with her. He's going to invade Jerusalem, plundering, looting, and destroying everyone. Okay? It says right here, the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. Leroy, let's keep it rolling. We're cooking.
Yeah, man. This is the fire is on, man. All right, so yeah, this is Hosea chapter 13, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Hosea chapter 13. So we're going to read from verse 1. And just to give you a backdrop, this is talking about again, northern kingdom, which is also called Samaria, which is also called Ephraim. Northern kingdom. So God says something very interesting here, and this is going to tie into why the beast once was, because the beast took out Jerusalem's sister. That's what we're about to read here. So it says,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
It is, yeah, but this is exactly what happened. So when it says, when Ephraim spoke, again, northern kingdom, Samaria, the first, wife, which, committed adultery, it says there was trembling, meaning he was exalted. He was of high esteem. He was exalted in Israel, but he incurred guilt through Baal and died. What did he do? He worshipped the gods of the Assyrians. That's what the northern kingdom did. They went and lusted after the Assyrians. They lusted after Baal.
Yeah.
So it says, therefore they forgot me. So I will be like a lion to them. I will lurk like a leopard on the path. I will attack them like a bear robbed of her cubs and tear open the rib cage over their hearts. I will devour them there like a lioness, like a wild beast. I would rip them open. Why is this important? Right? You went forward.
My bad. You want to go back?
Yeah. I was just saying, why is this important? Because God mentions the lion, bear, and leopard, right? And he says, I will be to Ephraim like a lion, bear, and a leopard. He's speaking about Assyria. The wild animal that destroyed the northern kingdom was Assyria. It once was, right? And it was slain by who? By the Messiah in the Old Testament, 2 Kings 19. Jesus slew this thing. His head is wounded now by the sword of the angel of the Lord. So it's going to revive again and take out Jerusalem this time. This is quite interesting, yeah. But let's go.
So there is there's always been this weird relationship between the woman and the beast, because we see her literally writing it and having a great time for the first 3.5 years. But then all of a sudden, God puts it in the heart of the Antichrist to come destroy her. So it's always been kind of an interesting relationship they've had. But again, we look at the biblical description. There's even certain verses that prove it must be Jerusalem. Like literally, you can't just get around these verses. And I've seen people try, but they've never successfully been able to do it. Right here in Jerusalem, when Jesus is lamenting over Jerusalem, he says, all of the righteous blood shed on the earth will be charged to you, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Barak, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Truly, I tell you, all these things will come on this generation. He says right here in verse 37, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under his wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And lo and behold, in Revelation 11, what happens? It says the bodies of the two witnesses are going to lie in public, the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, where their Lord was crucified. So my question is, where was Jesus crucified? He was crucified
outside Jerusalem.
Yeah, he was crucified in the bounds. So again, I offer this challenge to anybody who thinks differently. How could it possibly be any other city for this reason, right? For the fact that where Jesus was crucified is where this great city is going to come up from, right? So the woman, once again, can only be Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the only city which is directly charged with holding the blood of the saints, much like the woman who is holding a cup full of abominations and the blood of the martyrs. Furthermore, the great city in Revelation 11 is described figuratively as Sodom and Egypt, where the Lord was crucified. Okay? Now, I want us to quickly go back to the 3.5 years of the Antichrist when he breaks the covenant. because this is when Jesus is actually going to return to save the city. Leroy.
Mm. So yeah, this is Zechariah 14. It says, "On that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. The Mount of Olives will be split in half from east to west, forming a huge valley, so that half of the mountain will move to the north and half to the south." So what the Lord is going to do at the end, because we have to remember Daniel 9, it says that the anointed one, he will appoint the city to desolations, right? He appointed Jerusalem to desolations. However, the prophecies don't end there. Jerusalem's not just destroyed forever. Yeah, her sins are heaped up to the brim. They rejected Jesus at the appointed time, so therefore destruction was imminent. And Jesus affirmed that, saying that it will be destroyed. Flee from Jerusalem. Don't take part in her destruction, right? But also there's a restoration, right? There's a time where the Lord is going to restore the fallen,
Yep.
throne of David. He's going to restore Jerusalem. This is Joel 3. At that time, when he restores the fortunes of Judah and
Yeah.
Jerusalem, he's going to restore it. So although it's going to be destroyed, unfortunately, by the Antichrist and the nations,
Yeah.
the Lord's vengeance is going to be towards those nations that came against Jerusalem, who burden themselves with that stone. They're going to really feel the wrath of God when he returns.
And you know
Yeah.
what's crazy, man? I just had this thought. This thought literally came to me. It could be from the Holy Spirit. Who knows?
Mm,
But it's crazy how in Revelation either 11 or 17 it talks about a great earthquake that will
mm,
split the great city into three parts. Right?
mm,
The great city is going to split when Jesus Christ comes down and steps foot on the Mount of Olives in Israel. It's going to split. Then you look at the verse in Zechariah. It says when Jesus comes to step foot on the mount, it's going to break the city into three parts, and there's going to be geographical changes. There's going to be a river that flows to the east and to the west into the Dead Sea and into the Mediterranean after Jesus returns. So it's even the great earthquake that happens to the city as a judgment is seen in Zechariah as Jerusalem. You see what I'm saying?
wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah, it's
one.
crazy.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean it's literally it's to me it's extremely obvious.
yeah.
And so now, guys, this is going to be fun because we have a couple guys in here disagreeing.
Mhm.
So now we have the question and answer period. Okay, so if you guys have any questions related to the teaching, go ahead and put a Q dash, and we will thoroughly answer these questions to the best of your ability. Do you think Mystery Babylon is Rome? Tell us why. Okay, I have a couple saved here,
Mhm.
but we're gonna get into this. It's gonna be really fun.
Well, we went through this really quickly, actually. I'm
We
quite
did,
surprised.
but
Yeah,
we've been going for 40 minutes, so I mean that's pretty good time.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, let's see here. This guy says that Daniel's image of gold, silver, brass, iron, and clay, still altogether, iron is Europe and the clay is Islam. But Islam won't culturally assimilate like iron and clay.
I don't know where people get that from. Look, you know what? When it comes to the statue, yeah, the metals symbolizes dominion. That's what it means. In Daniel 7, right, which is more or less the same vision using different imagery, it's using animals. It says that the animals or the rest of the beasts were allowed to continue to live on, but their
Yeah,
dominion was taken away to be destroyed forever. What was destroyed in Daniel 2? The whole statue. It's the dominion. That is that's what the metals represent. Now in verse 43 of Daniel 2, it says that they will mingle, or they shall not mingle with the seed of men. So God has given us the answer there. The clay doesn't represent Europe, as you said. It represents the seed of men. We are the
yeah,
clay of his hands. We are, the Bible always talks about how we are the clay. It says
yeah,
they, which are these metals, which are, if you think about it, it's more durable, stronger, longer lasting than clay. Clay is weaker,
yeah,
significantly weaker, but the irons are stronger, denser, right? Especially, yeah, iron. The metals are all strong, but
yeah.
yeah, the day would symbolize those metals which are trying to infuse with the toes, essentially. But bro, check this out. In Revelation 12 and 13, we have dominion from the dragon transferred over to the horns on the beast.
I'm gonna get this verse up. Revelation, which one?
So Revelation, let's have a side by side. Revelation 12, where it depicts the dragon with the 10 crowns and everything, and then we are gonna have Revelation 13, where we see that the dragon's diadem crowns of authority, is transferred to the horns of the beast. This is why the toes have this dominion. The metal
Right.
is the dominion, and it's being infused with the clay, the toes.
Right.
So here we go. So when it mentions the beast coming out, it has 10 with diadem crowns, the first verse. And yeah. So it says, I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns, 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horn, sorry, and blasphemous names on its heads. Now, when you go to Revelation 12, it speaks about the dragon having the same amount of heads, right? Let's see it. Verse 3. Another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads 7 diadem crowns, right? So we see that the diadem crowns are on the heads of the dragon, right?
So let me try to clarify this for the audience. So the devil gives his authority to the beast. That's what he does. The beast takes the authority of the devil. And the way that he does that is when you look at the dragon, he's got how many crowns? He's got, is it 7?
7.
He's got 7
Yeah.
crowns on his heads. And then what he does is he transfers those crowns over to the beast, the horns. So remember, we've already distinguished that the heads are mountains, which are kingdoms, and the horns are kings. That's what they are according to the book of Daniel. So the transference of power comes from these nations to 10 specific kings that are going to rise up with the beast. Is that kind of what
That's
you're saying?
exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. Because those diadem crowns, you know how Jesus says to Pilate that you have no authority over me other than that which is given to you from above, right? So there's, Satan obviously has these diadem crowns. He has authority. Now, what he does in the end times is he transfers that authority over to these 10 crowns, these 10 horns, sorry, 10
No, you're
horns. So he's given dominion, like divine dominion, over to 10 human leaders, right? That's what's
fine.
happening. That's why the toes, right, are infused with this iron. It's this dominion is making its way down to the toes. These natural
Yeah.
kings, these fleshly kings. That's why it's infused with clay. It's more or less saying the same thing. It's a bit hard to
So
explain.
here's
Yeah.
another question, and that was really good. Here's another question. This
Mhm.
person says, "Look at the items sold during Babylon's fall." He's referencing Revelation 19, I believe. They are
Mhm.
all Mid East or Near East products: spices, silk, and incense. So that is
Mhm.
true. And I don't know if you believe Mecca is Mystery Babylon, which we don't. That is, while that's true, let's actually go look at the items that are sold. Okay, so if we go to Revelation, let's see here. We go to Revelation 19, I believe.
18,
Where's the
18,
fall of the great city?
18, yeah.
Oh, it's 18. Okay.
18 and
Leroy is the Bible man. He's the one that knows like all of them.
don't do that to me, bro. You're the Bible guy.
Nah, man.
All right.
So right, it's saying right here, come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plague, for her
Mhm.
sins are heaped as high as heaven. God has remembered her iniquities. Okay. And
Yeah.
as we go down,
Yeah.
who is wailing at the fall of Babylon? It's the merchants, because the
Mhm.
merchants are standing far off in fear for torment. And they say, alas, the great city, the mighty city Babylon is in a single hour, your judgment has come. So the merchants of the earth weep and mourn for her. No one buys their cargo anymore. Cargo of gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine linen, purple cloth, silk, scarlet cloth, all kinds of scented wood, all kinds of articles of ivory, all kinds of articles of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble. You got cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, and sheep, horses and chariots, and slaves, that is human souls. Okay, so
Mhm.
there's a lot going on here. And so a lot of people say, well, look, this is Middle Eastern products, but which it's true.
Mhm.
But what we need to look at is all of these items, pretty much every single one is what is needed for the third temple. Think about that.
Exactly.
So she
Exactly.
is trading with the merchants of the earth in order to get the third temple built. That's what all of this is: gold, right? Silver, cinnamon, spices, incense, myrrh, frankincense. All of these were used in the rituals, out in is it Numbers or no? It's Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy.
So
Yeah.
it actually makes more sense that these items that are being sold to Mystery Babylon by these merchants are for the purpose of the temple, of the
Exactly.
temple and for temple sacrifices. Because most likely what's going to happen is the third temple is going to be rebuilt. They're going to restart sacrifices and offerings, and this is the primary trade that they're doing in order to continue this operation. And so God's like, I don't want to see this anymore. So he destroys it through the Antichrist, and everybody's like, whoa. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a better explanation, I think, right?
Yeah. No, that was a good one. Yeah. That's a
All
good
right.
question.
So now let's go ahead and get some more. This guy says silk, the silk of China in the old Silk Road. It doesn't mention that, brother. It doesn't. The only mention of silk is within the robes of the high priest of Jerusalem, right? So I just want to gently just say that.
Mm.
This guy says the kings of the East are China, Russia. What are your thoughts on that, Leroy?
Yeah, people just seem to associate the kings of the East with China because it's been like widespread, I guess. It's misinformation. When the Bible talks about the East, it's talking about, the nations that are to the east of Israel, right? Which would be sort of Iran, Iraq. These are the nations that the Bible considers the East, not far east and into China. Because people say that because of the 2 million man army. They're like, how
Yeah,
can this army
yeah.
come out from the Middle East? No, it has to be from China because they have the population to produce this vast army. It's not concise. It's
Which
not.
they really don't. If you look at the population statistics of China, they're expecting to see a major crash in a major
Mm.
famine. So they're about to lose like probably half of their population within the next like 100
Sydney,
years.
Sydney said it's not.
Isn't that crazy, man? Over half of the Chinese population.
Yeah, it's
Dang.
wild. I mean, they're trying to really cut down on the population, isn't it? Like last time I heard, they're trying
Yeah,
to like limit how many kids you can have and things of that nature. It's definitely not that. I'll tell you that. It's not China.
yeah.
China's not the kings from the East. It's
But let
not.
me ask this question then: if you think that China is Mystery Babylon, why does it say that Jerusalem is the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her? Jerusalem is the one that unalived Jesus, right?
Exactly.
Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom in Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified.
Yeah.
So there's no way around it, right?
It's too
The
many.
two witnesses are actually going to be the final martyrs that are going to, be unalived in the city of Jerusalem, and their bodies are literally going to be out there in the open square in Jerusalem, right? So that's Sydney's saying it right. The Bible tells you exactly who she is. So,
Yeah. Bro,
let's
because
see here.
think about it, like when you made a great point. Like in her is the blood of the prophets. That's what it says in Revelation 18:24. In her is
Yeah,
the blood of the prophets, and of all those who have died on the earth. These are judgments, specific judgments, right? That are on Jerusalem given by Jesus. Jesus said in Matthew 23 that in her, in Jerusalem, is the blood of all the prophets and from all the righteous people from Abel to the, Barakai, I believe, no, Zecharias, son of Barakai. Like it's the same wording. So God has told us. It's just people aren't doing their due diligence and going through the scriptures because, as Jericho said,
absolutely.
the key is actually in the Old Testament. You got to understand the Old Testament to understand Revelation. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's key. So let's go ahead and do a couple more questions. Do we have any other questions? Um, yeah, truth. Do you mean the surrounding nations to Israel? Cities like Jericho and Leroy 100% correct. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
there's definitely no way we are 100% correct ever. We could be wrong, but we're trying to do our best,
Yeah.
as Bereans.
Exactly.
So let's see here. I want to kind of move away from China because I think we've already discussed that. Do we have any other questions about Mystery Babylon? If you are just joining the stream, please watch it from the beginning. We have a full slide share that we've shown you guys, and these slides will be available for free if you guys want to teach these in your classes or your homes. Let's see here. Shinar. Oh no, he didn't say this one, did he? He didn't
China.
say that.
China.
Oh
Oh,
no,
because it rhymes. Oh, come on.
is it right?
No way.
Shinar.
China is China. It does sound. It has a good ring to it, but is it true though? Nah.
Nope.
Nah.
The land of
Can you show them,
Shinar
bro?
is the Fertile Crescent, which would primarily be Babylon, which
Yeah,
is
right.
modern day Iraq.
Yeah.
That's where the land of Shinar is. It's also called the land of Nimrod because that's where Nimrod, the great mighty man before the flood, that's where he essentially was dwelling and built his cities. So the land of Shinar is 100% Babylon.
Yeah.
We all pretty much all of the historians agree on that.
Mm.
No, I actually do not know of the holy fire in Jerusalem during Easter. This is my first time hearing about it.
Yeah, I spoke to you about that, innit? Like a lot of people were talking about that. I have to look into that myself. I've been hearing a lot about it, so
Yeah.
I don't know what it's about. Yeah.
So we're not getting too many questions we can answer. We're trying to stay focused on the women, guys. What about this presentation? Um, did you have trouble with, or what's going on?
Yeah. Anything you want us to read,
Because
just kind of explain again.
if we go back to this, um, it says the merchants of these wares who gained wealth from her will stand far off in fear of her torment, weeping and mourning aloud. Alas, alas, for the great city that was clothed in fine linen, in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and jewels and with pearls. For in a single hour, all this wealth has been laid waste. And the
Mm.
shipmasters and seafaring men and sailors and all whose trade is on the sea stood far off and cried out as they saw the smoke of her burning. What city was like the great city?
Mm.
What a mystery. It
Yeah,
truly is a mystery.
it really is. But it's not a mystery when we go through the scriptures. We can see that God is like continuously giving us clues upon clues upon clues. It points to one city.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This person says eschatological Jerusalem isn't the Jerusalem of right now. Lots of things would biblically need to happen. Absolutely. We agree.
What does he mean? I'm trying to understand.
Because eschatological Jerusalem, he's probably talking about the last days Jerusalem, like the millennial
Oh
kingdom
yeah.
Jerusalem.
Oh yeah, the Jerusalem that comes out from heaven. Yeah, for real. But
Yeah.
Jerusalem right now, does it play a part in prophecy? 100%.
Yeah.
Because if you read Ezekiel 38:39, at some point we'll probably go through that, the battle of Gog and Magog. It speaks about Israel re-inhabiting the land again and being unfaithful to the Lord whilst in the land. And what does the Lord do?
Yeah.
In verse 17, he brings about Gog. He says, Gog, I spoke about him through all the prophets. Now he's going to come from the north to destroy the city. So they still play a huge role right now. But obviously, we have to pray for the peace of Jerusalem because, yeah, the destruction is very clear. It will happen.
Yeah. This person said, I'm thinking multiple things. One is about the two witnesses and when they are killed, where they are killed. So let's go to Revelation chapter 11 because this one answers it.
Mm.
Um, they have power to shut the sky that no rain may fall during the days of their prophesying. They have power over the waters. And when they had finished their testimony, okay, the beast that rises from the bottomless pit or the abyss will make war on them and conquer them and kill them. And their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city that symbolically is called Sodom and Egypt. Okay. Where their Lord was crucified. For 3.5 days, some of the people in tribes, in languages, and nations will gaze at their dead bodies and refuse to let them be placed in the tomb. So this specifies where it's going to be. It's the great city. It's symbolically called Sodom and Egypt. Now, Leroy, why
Mhm.
is this city symbolically called Sodom and Egypt, or spiritually called Sodom and Egypt?
Spiritually, Sodom and Egypt, because they are practicing exactly what Sodom, did. Egypt as well, because they practice idolatry. God is spiritually saying that the great city is spiritually practicing adultery, practicing in sodomy, and we see what's going on. The largest gay parade is apparently in Israel.
Yeah, that's what I
So
heard.
yeah, I mean, God is essentially saying it how he's seeing it. You are basically doing exactly what the nations that I destroyed for their sins. That's why it says it will be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah, compared to what Jerusalem's going to face, because Jerusalem, although they've been preserved through it all, they are still in this state where they are emulating the sins of the nations prior before them, Egypt
Absolutely.
and all. Yeah, so that's how the Lord is seeing this great city.
Absolutely. So there's only one place that this can be, and this is within the city of Jerusalem. So these two witnesses, they're going to come up. They're going to strike the waters into blood. They're going to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they like. Imagine having that power, man. As often as they desire, they're going to strike the world with a plague. Like imagine you say, okay, you know what, China, I'm sick of you. Here's a plague. That's crazy. Isn't that crazy?
That is wild. Yeah.
That's
That's
wild,
wild.
man. But I mean, that's the authority that they're given. But they will be killed when the beast rises up to make war on them, where their Lord was crucified, which is Jerusalem. So hopefully that answers your question. If you guys have any more questions, put them down below. This person says Jerusalem is the harlot and Mecca is Mystery Babylon. Unfortunately, brother, the harlot is the same as Mystery Babylon.
Yeah.
So Mystery Babylon, the woman that rides the beast, is described as the harlot, the great harlot. So there can only be one.
Yeah. It's Jerusalem, guys.
Yeah, it's Jerusalem.
The scriptural evidence is too much. It's just way too much.
It's way too much.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we shut out of here, guys? Anything else? Any other deep things? This guy says, no way Mystery Babylon is not Jerusalem because it will never be inhabited again. You're right. So this is probably the greatest objection that we get to this theory, which is, remember how Jerusalem is going to be, or Mystery Babylon is never going to be inhabited, right? But then if you look at what's going to happen with Jerusalem in the millennial kingdom, they're going to be there for 1,000 years. So how does that make sense? But luckily, do you want to describe it or do you want me to describe it?
Yeah, no, you go ahead, bro. Yeah.
So essentially what's going on. So let's give a timeline for events, okay? What's going to happen first is that within Jerusalem, they're going to make a covenant with the Antichrist for 7 years, okay? 3.5 way through that, or 3.5 years through that, the Antichrist is going to invade Jerusalem and devote it to complete destruction, like what happened in the past. Then at the end of those 3.5 years, Jesus is going to return and step foot on the Mount of Olives. That's where he's going to return and step foot too. And in doing that, it's going to split the great city into 3 different geographical segments. Let's look at Zechariah 12 for this. So we go to Zechariah chapter, is it 14?
Yeah, 14. Which
it is 14. Okay. So right here, for I will gather, and this is exactly what I just said, but the Bible says it better. I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken. This is at the 3.5 years that the Antichrist breaks, and the house was plundered, and the woman ravished. Half of the city shall go into exile, and the rest of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. On that day, and let me make sure this is, can you guys see this? On that day, his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives that lies east of Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in 2. Okay, this is very important to understand. Shall be split in 2 before Jerusalem on the east. Okay, it's going to be split from east to west by a very wide valley, so that one half of the mount shall move northward and the other half southward. And you shall flee into the valley of my mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach to Azal. And you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come and all the holy ones with him. So immediately when Jesus returns, the city of Jerusalem is going to be destroyed by a massive earthquake, never to be inhabited again. It's going to be utterly destroyed. Okay. Then Christ is going to set up the new millennial kingdom, which is going to be Mystery Babylon, or not Mystery Babylon, which is going to be the heavenly Jerusalem. So there's 2 Jerusalems. There's the heavenly Jerusalem, and there's the one that gets destroyed at the end. So Jesus is bringing the new Jerusalem, and he's going to reign, and he does this by making topographical changes to the land of Israel. Yeah. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah, right? he's gonna restore Jerusalem. So that Jerusalem that fell, it actually talks about how the inhabitants or the remnant right? They're going to be so remorseful for the sins that they've acknowledged. They will actually acknowledge the sins that they've committed, the adultery they've committed against God, and they will be ashamed to even, even go look upon it, right? But the new Jerusalem that Jesus is going to establish is going to be in the midst of the natural Jerusalem, the earthly Jerusalem, because that's the Jerusalem, that's his footstool essentially. Because you know how the Bible, God says, like his throne is in heaven, the heavenly Jerusalem, but his footstool is on the earth as well. That's earthly Jerusalem. So he's going to be ruling from the midst of Jerusalem, rebuking nations far and wide, as it says in Micah 4. So he's going to restore that ruins, the ruins of Jerusalem. Even Isaiah 52 talks about him coming back, entering a ruined Jerusalem, and the kings will look upon him. The one who did. They will look upon him. So it's
absolutely
really deep. Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately, it's not really a big objection to the theory. And if you make Mystery Babylon any other city, you're going to run into serious issues, which is, how is it that this city is described as where the Lord was crucified? I mean, that's just the biggest indicator right there. And also, how did the city of China, sit historically on all 7 of the kingdoms that arose? It doesn't make any sense. So it can only be Jerusalem. All right, now let's do one more question, and then we're out of here. So let's get one more little question in here. And we got 97 people in the live. I appreciate everyone that's here. Let's get one more question. Sydney says, just go over the verses they just did truth. It will make sense to you, brother. Let's see here. This person says, I wish you guys could get Joel Richardson or Sonia Azam on your platform to discuss the matter.
Yeah, we need to have some objective views. People like opposing this views and then discuss it. I feel like it'll be more fruitful, and we'll probably get to the bottom of it that way. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we should.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I'm not seeing any questions coming in, so I think we're going to wrap it up here. Leroy, thank you so much for coming on, man. I think this was really good.
Always a pleasure, bro. Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right. Happy Easter, guys, and we're out.